punks. They took his name off a building last night. They sent workers out in the dark, middle of the night, scaffolding up on the Kennedy Center, and they chiseled Donald Trump's name right off the facade. A federal judge, Obama appointee naturally, said take it down, and by golly, they took it down. And I want you to think about what that image looks like to the rest of the world. Scaffolding, hard hats, floodlights, dozens of onlookers standing on the sidewalk watching, and workers in the dead of night removing the name of a sitting president from a national arts institution in Washington, D.C. Now, is that normal? Is that a normal thing that normal countries do? I want you to sit with that image for just a moment, because we are not talking about a plaque on a park bench. We are talking about the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, one of the crown jewels of official Washington. And the left had such a burning, consuming, pathological hatred for one man who, by the way, won the presidency, that they could not even let his name exist on a building long enough for the scaffolding to rust. They had people out there at night like they were dismantling a crime scene. Now, I've been in this business a long time, my friends, a long time. I have watched Democrats do some remarkable things. I have seen them contort themselves into positions that would make a circus performer wince, all in the service of expressing their disdain for the American people and the choices those people make at the ballot box. But this one has a special flavor. They just cannot help themselves. And then, you have Chuck Schumer, the senior senator from New York, the man who has held more press conferences on the steps of the Capitol than any human being in recorded history, going on television and saying, with a straight face, "We are poised to take back the Senate." Chucky, the crying clown of Capitol Hill, poised. And on top of all that, we've got House Democrats going on television to tell you that a 19-year-old who stabbed a 17-year-old to death at a high school soccer game was the victim of a racist jury. And Tulsi Gabbard dropping what might be the most explosive intelligence disclosure in years. Over 120 U.S.-funded biolabs in 30 countries, and the drive-by media is busy live-tweeting the scaffolding going up at the Kennedy Center. We have a lot of ground to cover today, folks. I'm Rick Lebo. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, my friends, let's start with the Kennedy Center business, because I think it says more about where we are right now than almost anything else happening in this country. So here's what happened. President Trump, when he took over the Kennedy Center, and he did, the president legally took control of the board. He put his name on it, as presidents sometimes do with things they take custody of. That's it. That's the whole crime. His name was on the building. And the left and the courts, courtesy of one U.S. District Judge Christopher Cooper, an Obama-era appointee, are you surprised? Are you the slightest bit surprised? Said no. No, that name has got to come off, and it's got to come off by tonight. Court-ordered deadline, Friday evening. So what happened? Workers showed up, scaffolding went up, and they did it. Crowds gathered. People actually showed up to watch. Like it was a sporting event. Like it was a parade. The name of the President of the United States being removed from a building, and people cheering. And here's the thing that gets me. Here is the thing I want you to really chew on. The Kennedy Center is named after John F. Kennedy, who, by the way, was a Democrat, who cut taxes, who was hawkish on national defense, who would be drummed out of today's Democratic Party before lunchtime on his first day. But his name stays, obviously. His name stays forever. Barry Obama gets a whole presidential center. Beautiful building, I'm told, nice architecture, named after himself. No problem. That's legacy. That's history. But Donald J. Trump, the man who got more votes than any Republican in the history of this republic, more votes than Ronald Reagan, more votes than George Bush, his name on a building is apparently a civil emergency requiring nighttime demolition crews. I mean, I'm sorry, but you cannot write this stuff. Now, I understand what this is really about. Let me be clear-eyed about this. This isn't about a building. This isn't about taste or aesthetics or architectural purity. This is about sending a message. The message is, you don't exist. The message is, we will erase you. The message is, your voters, your movement, your president, none of it is real, none of it counts, and we will scrub every last trace of it from every surface we can reach. That's what the scaffolding in the dark is telling you. Now, what's Chuck Schumer up to while all this is happening? Because Chuck doesn't miss an opportunity. If there's a camera within 400 yards, Schumer will find it and position himself between it and whatever is happening. He goes on television and he says, I have this story right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. He says, we are poised to take back the Senate. Poised. Now, let me explain something for those of you in Rio Linda. Democrats need to pick up 4 net seats in 2026 to take back the Senate. 4 seats. And Schumer says they have multiple paths to a majority. Multiple paths. You know what Democrats had in 2024? Multiple paths to stop Trump. Multiple investigations, multiple indictments, multiple impeachments, multiple courtroom battles, multiple years of wall-to-wall media coverage telling you Donald Trump was literally the end of democracy as we know it. How did those paths work out, Chuck? Now I will give Schumer this much. He's not entirely wrong that there are competitive races. Susan Collins up in Maine is in a tighter race than people expected. Her opponent, Graham Plattner, and we'll get to Mr. Plattner in a moment, believe me, I am delighted to get to Mr. Plattner, is giving her a real contest. And you've got Texas, where James Tallarico is running as some kind of Texas-born, boots-on-the-ground man of the people. And we'll talk about that in the roundup. But here's my question for the Chuckster. Here's what I genuinely want to know. Your party just spent the last week watching House Democrats go on television and tell America that a jury of 12 people is racist because they convicted a teenager who stabbed another teenager to death. Your party has a Twitch streamer named Hasan Piker going around New York City telling crowds that America is closer than ever to socialism and endorsing socialist candidates in the June primary. Your party's Senate candidate in Maine had what is being described as a deranged meltdown online about Elon Musk becoming the world's first trillionaire. That is the party that is poised to take the Senate? Poised like a man on a banana peel is poised. Let me stay on the Kennedy Center for just another moment, because I haven't gotten to my favorite part yet. My absolute favorite part of this whole story. Ready? The judge who ordered this, Judge Christopher Cooper, issued this ruling against a last-minute effort to keep Trump's name on the building, meaning someone actually went to court and said, hold on, pump the brakes. Maybe we don't need to do this. And the judge said, no, the name comes down, tonight as ordered. An Obama appointee ordered the president's name off a building. Now, I am not suggesting that every Obama appointee rules the wrong way on everything. I am simply noting that this is now a pattern so consistent, so reliably predictable, that at this point it might as well be a law of nature. Day follows night. Summer follows spring. Obama-appointed judges rule against Trump. You could set your watch by it. It's almost beautiful in its consistency. Now, what I want you to take away from all of this, the Kennedy Center, Schumer's proclamations, the whole spectacle, is that the Democratic Party and their friends in the media and their friends on the federal bench have decided that they are going to fight the results of 2024 by any means necessary. Not legislatively, not at the ballot box. Through the courts, through bureaucratic resistance, through scaffolding in the night. And they think this makes them look strong. To normal Americans watching this, and there are a lot of normal Americans watching this, it looks like a tantrum. It looks like a group of people who lost and simply refused to accept it. So they're out there with chisels in the dark, scraping letters off marble, and feeling very righteous about the whole thing. The American people are not stupid. They see what's happening. They saw it in November of 2024. They are going to see it again in November of 2026. And when they do, Chuck Schumer's multiple paths to a majority are going to look a lot like the multiple paths Democrats have been walking for the last 10 years, which is to say, paths that lead straight into a wall. Don't doubt me. Now I want to talk about the Carmelo Anthony situation, because this is important and it connects directly to the Kennedy Center story in a way that might not be obvious right away, but trust me, I'll get there. Carmelo Anthony, 19 years old, Texas, found guilty of murder. He stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf to death at a high school soccer game. A jury convicted him. A Texas jury sentenced him to 35 years. And House Democrats, members of Congress, people who are paid by your tax dollars to legislate, went on television and said the verdict was racist because the jury was, quote, all white. Let me just let that land. The jury looked at the evidence. The jury heard the case. The jury convicted a teenager who killed another teenager. And the response from elected Democrats in the United States Congress is to go on cable news and call the jury racist. Now, and here's where it connects to the Kennedy Center. Stay with me. What you're watching is a political party that has committed itself fully and totally to the idea that every outcome that doesn't favor their preferred groups is by definition illegitimate. Every single one. Jury verdict, racist. Election result, stolen or at minimum tainted. President's name on a building must be removed immediately. The system itself is their enemy. Every institution, every process, every outcome, if it doesn't produce the result they wanted, the institution is corrupt, the process is tainted, and the result must be reversed. Guy Benson put it well. He said the family of Carmelo Anthony intentionally made this case about race from the beginning. That's right. That's accurate. And the Democrats in Congress picked up that ball and ran with it because that's what they do. That is their play. It is always their play. It has been their play since I was a young man, and it will be their play long after I'm gone. Now, and I want to be very careful here, very precise, there is a 17-year-old named Austin Metcalf who is dead. He's dead. He went to a soccer game, and he never came home. And the people who are turning this into a conversation about jury demographics and institutional racism are doing something truly ugly, which is using that dead teenager and the teenager who killed him as props in a culture war performance. Austin Metcalf deserved justice. He got it. And the Democrats who went on television to call that justice racist ought to be deeply, permanently ashamed of themselves. They won't be, but they ought to be. All right, the roundup. Moving fast, folks. First up, Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. And I want to say something before I get into this. Tulsi Gabbard is one of the more interesting figures in American politics right now. Former Democrat, combat veteran, and she has been doing things in that DNI role that I don't think anybody fully anticipated. This week, she released what she's calling never-before-seen intelligence, showing that the U.S. government, your government, funded more than 120 biological laboratories in over 30 countries, including in Ukraine, including in places that intelligence officials previously flagged as potentially vulnerable. 120 biolabs, 30 countries. Now, I am not going to stand here and tell you exactly what was happening in all of these labs. I don't know. Tulsi doesn't claim to know everything yet either. What I am going to tell you is this. For years, anyone who even raised the question of U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine was called a conspiracy theorist. They were called a Russian propagandist. They were laughed off. They were banned from social media platforms. How's that going now? The all-knowing, all-sensing, all-seeing Maha Ricky has said for a long time that when the government gets very, very aggressive about shutting down a question, not answering it, shutting it down, that is usually a sign the question deserves asking. 120 labs, 30 countries. The American taxpayer funded them. We deserve to know what was in them and what they were doing. Tulsi is doing the work. We'll keep watching. Next, Trump RX versus the Democrat drug bill. This one's simple, folks. Trump has a plan, Trump RX, to bring down prescription drug prices for Americans. It's moving. It's happening. Meanwhile, Democrats in Congress have put forward something called the Medication Affordability and Patent Integrity Act. And if a bill has that many words in its name, you can already guess it was written by lawyers for other lawyers. According to the reporting on this, the Democrat bill would essentially create a bureaucratic process and a bunch of courtroom fights over drug patents. And here's the kicker. It gives China a head start, because the way the patent provisions work, Chinese manufacturers can jump in faster than American ones. So the Democrat plan to lower drug prices involves red tape, lawsuits, and handing Beijing an advantage. The Trump plan actually does something. This is not complicated. This is not nuanced. One plan helps the American patient. The other one helps Chinese manufacturers and American lawyers. I'll let you figure out which party proposed which. Finally, big news out of the administration on Friday. President Trump announced that the U.S. military killed Nino Guerrero, the leader of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang that has been operating inside the United States, that has terrorized communities in Aurora, Colorado, in New York, in cities across this country. The president called it a swift and lethal kinetic strike. U.S. Southern Command. Direct action. Now, I want to make sure everybody appreciates what just happened. The leader of a foreign criminal organization that was conducting operations on American soil is dead. Dead because the commander-in-chief decided that was going to happen, and the United States military made it happen. And the drive-by media's big story this week was scaffolding at the Kennedy Center. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. Here's what I want you to remember about Tren de Aragua. These are not just garden variety criminals. This is a gang that was, by multiple accounts, operating under a level of organization and brutality that is genuinely unusual. They moved into American cities during the Biden years, when the border was open, when ICE was being told to stand down, when the message coming out of Washington was effectively, "Come on in." They set up operations. They took over apartment complexes. They threatened residents. Now their leader is dead. That is what a government that takes its responsibilities seriously looks like. You can agree or disagree with the method, but that man is not going to direct operations on American soil anymore. And while we're on the subject, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced Friday that illegal employment schemes, the kind connected to illegal immigration and the shadow economy, generated over $2.5 billion in suspicious payroll tax fraud in 2025 alone. $2.5 billion. That is money that was supposed to go to the United States Treasury. That is money that funds Social Security and Medicare, the programs that your elderly parents depend on, that you are paying into right now with every paycheck. And it was being siphoned off. The people who told you for years that illegal immigration had no real economic cost, where are they? Where are they? Where are the economists and the columnists and the TV anchors who looked into the camera and told you that undocumented workers were a net positive and anyone who said otherwise was a xenophobe? I'd love to have that conversation today. I would genuinely love it. $2.5 billion just in 2025, just in payroll tax fraud, one category. Don't let anybody tell you there's no cost. My friends, let me leave you with this, because it's on my mind, and I think it should be on yours too. There's a line between two things happening in American life right now, and I want you to see it clearly. On one side, you have the actual work of governing a country, killing gang leaders, exposing secret biolabs, cutting drug prices, cracking down on the people who are stealing from working Americans' paychecks. That work is happening. It is being done. On the other side, you have a political and media class that is completely consumed, completely lost in a performance, scaffolding in the night, crying about Elon Musk being too rich, calling juries racist, Chuck Schumer telling you he is poised. These are not people governing. These are not people leading. These are people who are angry and scared and entirely out of ideas. And the only thing they have left is the ability to chip letters off a building at 2 a.m. and call it a victory. America is not going to be decided by what name is on the Kennedy Center. America is going to be decided by whether the people running things take seriously the work that needs to be done. And right now, and I say this with the full weight of the Attila the Hun chair behind me and the golden EIP microphone in front of me, right now, one side is doing that work and the other side is playing dress-up. The American people can tell the difference. They always could. The drive-by media just never believed that. I have always believed it. That's why I'm still here. That's why you're still here. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.